welcome to All Steelers Talk, your home for everything Pittsburgh Steelers, presented by allsteelers.com.
What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbein, joined every Monday and Wednesday by my main man, Steven Thompson. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk or anywhere you get your podcast. Today, we're diving deep into the one major change that could be coming to the Pittsburgh Steelers offense after the bye week and a possible offensive coordinator on the market that I'm very excited about. I don't know if everybody else is very excited about it, but we'll talk about it all and how the Steelers plan to replace Chase Claypool. But first, it's a beautiful day out here. I can't get my fingers right. They were right for a whole year. The last two episodes, I just don't know what's going on here. But how you feeling, my friend?
Feeling good. It's cold. It's cold. Like you look outside the window, it is cold. It is deceptively sunny outside.
Wow.
I don't mind actually. I don't mind. I would like rather freeze my ass off with the sun out than have it just be cloudy all the time. I'd rather it look nice.
100%.
Actually be
Did
nice.
you see the eclipse this morning?
There's an eclipse this morning?
There was an eclipse this morning. It was sick, actually. It happened at like 5:30. It was awesome.
I can imagine why. Yeah, I think I know why I didn't see it then.
Yeah. Most people didn't see it. So I'm always up at 5 a.m. and my brother texted me. He was going to work and he's like, yo, check out the moon. So I went outside and the whole sky was red, which was sick. But when I went outside, the moon was supposed to be red. It wasn't red because there's so many lights in the city, but it looked like it was like a ping pong ball just sitting in my neighbor's backyard. It was awesome. Clear as day. Like you could watch like the sun you could watch like the sun just start to fade away behind the moon. It was pretty sick. It was the first time I've ever seen something like that because like normal people until this past year, I didn't wake up at 5 a.m. So
I did see an eclipse. I saw an eclipse in Oregon once when I was in high school. Yeah, that was like during the day. That was a much more convenient time to go see an eclipse. Although it was a pain in the ass. It was a pain in the ass getting out to go see. Like I was staying in Portland with my family, and just getting out to like you gotta go out in like the boonies or whatever to actually like see it, to get into like the band or whatever it was. That was a pain in the ass. There was so much traffic. Everyone was doing the same thing, but it was a good time.
I can imagine.
It was pretty sick.
I would never ever maybe, but it wouldn't be like the boonies where everybody else is going to the boonies. Like if I was like, oh, I know this lunar eclipse spot, I would never go there. I'd go to somewhere. I'd be like, yeah, that's cool, but I'm just gonna go to the top of this mountain away from everybody else. And
I would tell everybody else tell everyone else about the lunar eclipse spot, and then I would go somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, go check this place out, and then I'd go definitely go somewhere else. But it was cool. Like I'm a moon guy, so it was
You're a moon guy.
It was a good time. Oh, big moon guy. I got the moon on the chain here. The moon, the sun, and the star. I'm a big weird energy guy. My house is filled with crystals. I will probably lose some fans for this one. It wasn't me. It was how like everybody makes fun of crystal girls. Well, my soon-to-be wife is a crystal girl. All our friends are crystal girls.
I would never.
I got into it. I did. When we first started dating, it was awful. I would be like, yeah. I don't think this is this is weird. She says she's a witch. It's a little creepy, man. She's into ghosts and stuff. I'll tell you the whole story one time when we won't scare all of our readers away or all of our viewers away. But if you are into that stuff, hit me up because I'm always down to talk some crystals too.
Maybe there's another podcast in the near future that you and Jillian got to start together.
Yeah, just talking about we got stories. I got ghost stories. The first time, we're getting way off topic here, but the third time we ever went on a date or hung out or whatever, we're driving and she starts telling me about this creepy chest in her house that has this like writing, these drawings in it from her grandmother, who like her grandmother is dealing with stuff and like she's like, she's got like dementia. So, she wasn't able to like tell you the story or whatever. How they found out about it was her sister did like some crazy like yoga experience and like saw her grandmother and spoke to her about these little women that were drawn in there. And like, when I tell you, it's not like, oh, this is a nice painting. It's like demons in beds and stuff. Like, it's terrible, terrible. And then the first time she ever stayed at my house, we wake up in the middle of the night and she's like, dude, I had a dream last night that the walls were shaking and this guy was talking to me and we were here like in the bedroom. And I was like, that's crazy. And she's like, the only other time I've had that is when I was a little kid. And I was like, why would you tell me this? Like, why would you would you do this?
It would be so much more comforting if she had those dreams like every night. If they
all the time. And there's a million other stories like this. The ghosts have never stopped ever. They've just gotten progressively worse, but I've just learned to just be like, whatever. Like, what are you going to do? Kill me? I don't care. Like, it's better than this. It's better. This is better than dying is better than what you're doing to me right now.
If they want to kill me, there's not much I can do about it. So
that's what I'm saying. Like, what am I going to, oh God, like I'm going to fight off a ghost. No, never. So now that we said that, the house is definitely going to tumble down or something as we're recording this podcast. So just make sure you publish it. Everybody watching, I hope you enjoyed that 6 minutes and 15 seconds of Crystal Witch Ghost Talk. That was good. That was the best way to start off fall season. It's November. The Steelers are a spooky team. So let's talk about the offense.
That was a good segue.
Thank you. Najee Harris has struggled this season mightily, dealing with 2 foot injuries, a Liz Frank sprain in training camp, missed all of training camp pretty much, then suffered another foot injury in week 1 against the Cincinnati Bengals. Says he's 100% healthy, says he's ready to go. I don't know if I believe that. Mike Tomlin said today that Jaylen Warren, he didn't say that he has an opportunity or any of this. He said when he was evaluating what could change in the offense, the distribution of running backs was part of that, and that Jaylen Warren has made some electric plays. And then he said that maybe Jaylen Warren will carve out the story for himself, the storyline for himself, that he is a feature back. Did you take that as the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to see if Jaylen Warren is an RB1 in the near future?
100%. 100%. I don't know about RB1, but they're like definitely going to give him a much more serious look this week.
Oh yeah.
If for no other reason than like the beginning of this like line of questioning and answering with Tomlin at his press conference today, it began with someone asking, is Najee still hampered by these injuries? And look, Najee has said one thing. Najee said, I'm not, that these are in the past. I'm not dealing with them. And then Mike Tomlin comes out and says, I don't know, like, you'll have to ask him. Like, it wasn't, and that feels like something, if Mike Tomlin knew one way or the other, if he felt one way or the other, and if the way he felt was in line with how Najee felt, he would have said that. Like, that wouldn't have been something that he would have danced around, but he did dance around it. And the other thing is, you pointed out that quote, it was a classic, like, Mike Tomlin, oh, maybe he will have an opportunity, maybe he won't, it felt like a very direct, I think the quote was, maybe he'll write that script for himself. And that, like, that seemed very clear to me that Jaylen Warren is going to have a chance to do this, and it's up to him now. It's in his hands. Like, they are going to give him the opportunity, and it's on him now, whether or not he's going to make the plays necessary to live up to that role that I think he wants to be in, and that the Steelers kind of hope he could be in, I guess.
Yeah, no, I agree. I look at this as just like you said, Tomlin is usually very cut you off, not going to give you much. If you ask a question that is a no, like he might not say no. A lot of times he will say no, but he might not say directly no, but he'll shut you down without, humiliating a player. In this aspect, he said, just like you said, he left it open to, he could do that. I think the fact that he said, he could write that script means that they're going to, at least, like you said, give him an opportunity. I think the big question is how big of an opportunity, because we've seen this before. We've seen the Jaylen Warren's going to get a bunch of snaps and then he walks away with 2 rushes on back-to-back weeks, So is this a real opportunity for him to actually get 10 plus touches in a game and see if he could actually carve out a role for himself. And on the same side as that, what if Najee Harris comes out here and the first 4 rushes of the game bursts out 40 yards? You can't shut him down at that point. So what is the dynamic if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, if you're Mike Tomlin, what is your dynamic of, okay, we have to understand that the Saints are not a good football team. So we have to take everything that happens in this game with a grain of salt. We don't want to shut down Najee while he's rolling. If just hypothetically, if Najee comes out booming, but we still have to let Jaylen have some sort of opportunity because he has earned that opportunity.
Well, I think what this comes down to is that you're not going to have a big drop off from, like, let's say Najee does, rip off 10 yards per carry on his first four rushes. Right now, Jaylen Warren's averaging, like, I looked up these stats like just a few minutes ago. I believe it's like 7.5. It's close to 7.5 yards per rush. Like,
yeah, it's 8.3 in his last game.
Yeah, 8.3. Like, that's what Jaylen Warren is doing. Like, what we're describing, this hypothetical situation where Najee Harris is completely blowing us away right away, and it's just the same thing that Jaylen Warren's doing or been doing.
True.
And there is some context to that. Like, Jaylen Warren's gone in towards the end of games. That's when he's gotten a lot of carries, like especially in that Eagles game. When Jaylen Warren's in there, you're not keying on him as much as you are on Najee Harris. Like, there's all that context that you got to take into account, but he's running behind the same offensive line, same offense against, the same teams. I just don't, Mike Tomlin said, like, we'll never say that he's looking towards the future and is going to put, prioritize giving young guys reps, especially at this point in the season where the Steelers are. But, like, you can give Jaylen Warren a chance, and you can give this young guy a look without, I think, losing a whole lot in terms of your competitiveness and trying to win and trying to be productive on offense.
Do you worry about Najee Harris's confidence at that point? Because if you make that change, like if you make a drastic change, you somewhat have to commit to it. Like if Jaylen's getting 15 snaps or 15 rushes a game and Najee's getting 8 for 3 games in a row, like you can't just at one point say, oh, never mind, Jaylen's not it anymore. We're going to go back to Najee. Unless Jaylen stinks. Like if Jaylen's not good, then you're going back to Najee. But how big of a risk is that if Jaylen stinks 6 games from now? And then at that point, you've already just crushed Najee's confidence. He is just not in a good headspace whatsoever. And now you're going to toss him back out there for a round 2? Or do you look at that and just say, well, he's an NFL running back. His competitive nature, he's a first-round pick, should say, well, I get a second opportunity to prove myself. And you don't really worry about that.
Yeah, I'm not very worried about that. Like, first of all, Najee's a competitive guy, and I don't think he will ever kind of shrink like that, like shrink in that sense.
Yeah.
I also think the Steelers can handle this. They don't need to handle it that delicately. In that in that kind of same vein, like, Najee's a big boy. He can handle himself. Like, he's a grown man. He's in the NFL. He's been productive in the NFL too. It's not like this is it's not like it's not like this is Najee's first year and this is all that he's done in the NFL is what he's done this year. Like, there's a proven track record of Najee Harris being not just a productive back, but being a back that can, like, really carry an offense. So, like, he has something to fall back on. But then also the Steelers can say, look, this is where we're at right now. You are a franchise cornerstone. We drafted you in the first round for a reason. Take it easy. Like, get fully healthy or rest. Let's prevent some wear and tear that comes naturally from just running that much. And let's take another run at it next year. Like, we're 2-6 right now. Like, let's just all be honest about where this team is at. I don't think it's as all or nothing as, look, if we don't let Najee do his thing for the whole year, if we don't run him into the ground, he's going to think that we don't have confidence in him. And you also got to weigh, like, if his season keeps going like this at this rate, how is that going to affect his confidence? How is having a subpar season by his standards going to affect that?
Yeah, he's I could say that he's not, he's not the same Najee that started the season when it comes to at least talking to him. But nobody ever is when you're 2-6. And I agree with you to a point. Like, Najee is a big boy. He should be able to handle himself. He should be professional enough to be able to take a benching and, and like, it's not like they'd shut him down completely, but to take limited reps and understand that he's not getting, replaced necessarily. Like, he still has a role, because even if they did, like, even if Jaylen Warren came in here and proved like, I'm a starting NFL running back, I am a superstar in the making, I'm about to take over this league. Najee Harris is a first round pick. Like, it's not like they're going to be like, oh, it's over. We're going to go one running back and it's going to be Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris is done. He's always going to have a role on the Steelers until his time in Pittsburgh is over. So I agree with that one. But at the same time, like, I think it would take a little bit of a toll in the fact that, or in the sense that, he did get his reps taken away. He is a first round pick. It is, a blow to, I was on this upward trajectory and now I'm, behind an undrafted guy. And I don't think he would have any hard feelings towards Jaylen, obviously, but I think it would be a hit on his confidence, but it wouldn't weigh his confidence down. Just it would probably piss him off. Like, he wouldn't handle it with a smile. You know what I'm saying? Like, he wouldn't be like, oh, all right, cool, like, sounds good. And I also don't think that anybody in Pittsburgh right now, at least, and especially if you win against New Orleans, is going to be able to look at the situation and say, oh, well, our season is as over as me and you see it, because, like, we see it as, yeah, they're probably going to beat New Orleans, but they're still not going anywhere this year. Everybody in the locker room, you beat the Saints and you're like, all right, guys, we're 3-6. Like, this season's wide open. And you're just like, no, it's really not, so, like, it's a different look from inside the locker room. But I don't know. Like, I agree with you. Like, I wouldn't worry about it too much. But I think it definitely would take a little bit of a toll. But that being said, like, it doesn't matter. Like, Najee's not a guy that has played well enough for me to care about that toll. And Jaylen has played well enough that you do. And it'd be one thing if Najee was like, oh, okay, well, he's on the verge of being good, but he just hasn't been able to get it to click. Like, he hasn't been on that verge. He's looked really bad pretty much every single time he's touched the football, and we're 10 weeks into the season. So at this point, you just got to give up on any hope. And if he surprises you, cool. If not, you don't have any expectations at this point. So I agree with that. I think it's tough. Do you see a snap count? Do you have a snap count in vision for this week? Do you think this is the week that things get a little lopsided?
Well, that's a good question. I kind of hadn't thought about that. I feel like it will be kind of a ride the hot hand kind of situation. Like, maybe you don't start Jaylen. Maybe you start Najee and just kind of maybe you like give either of them a series and just see who's cooking that day. If I had to take a stab at it, I feel like Jaylen's it's gonna be a 60-40 or a 65-35 type of thing.
Yeah. I feel the same way. I think it's like right in that number. Like, especially if you're winning, like, Jaylen gets 20 carries, Najee gets, 11. If you run the ball 31 times, if you run it 20, like, a Jaylen gets 12, Najee gets 8 type of situation, and Jaylen probably makes the most out of those 12. Yeah, I agree. I think it's like a 60-40, 65-35.
Yeah. And the other thing is they're throwing the ball a lot, and Jaylen's been much more productive as a pass catcher. Like, that's the other thing you gotta think about is, like, Jaylen's just been so much more versatile too. And so that's gonna, like, affect his snap count too if you can keep him in when, like, just every time Najee's in there, you're expecting him to run. Jaylen gives you a bit more of a varied threat. So I think that's just kind of where he could break in more too.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's just the best. I just think that that's the best way to go about it this week, is to just increase Jaylen's snap count pretty significantly without taking away Najee's to, like, a huge degree. Like, if Najee only plays 40% of the offensive snaps, that's, like, okay, because that's still a decent number. I also think that he could help in replacing Chase Claypool, which we're about to get into, on top of an offensive coordinator that the Steelers should definitely look at, but I don't think everybody agrees with me on that one. But first, we got a word from Established Titles and a chance for you to maybe save the planet a little bit. Yeah, let me just set up. Oh, that right there. Let me tell you about it. So you're talking about this, right? See, I'm actually a lord. It's from Established Titles, a fun and novel way to preserve the natural woodlands of Scotland while helping global reforestation efforts. It's based on a historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lairds, but in English, they're, or as we should say, are called lords and ladies. What you do is you purchase a title pack that gives you at least 1 square foot of dedicated land on a private estate in Edelston, Scotland, and an official certificate with a crest. Right there. Your certificate actually features a unique plot number, which you can see the exact location of your land. And with it, Established Title plants a tree and works with global charities like One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future to support global reforestation efforts. The other great part, you could officially change your name to Lord or Lady and get it on your credit card, plane tickets, etc. It's the perfect last-minute gift. And finally, the best part. The first 200 people to purchase one of these bad boys using my link will effectively be in a plot next to mine within a few minutes of walking distance. Depending on how many of you want to become a lord or a lady, we can build our own little all Steelers talk kingdom. How awesome is that? It makes an amazing last minute gift. Established Titles is actually running a Black Friday sale, their biggest sale of the year. Plus, if you use the code ALLSteelers, you get an additional 10% off. All you have to do is go to establishedtitles.com/AllSteelers to get your gifts now and help support our channel. Let's build a little All Steelers Talk kingdom today. Go buy a tree, man. Go buy a tree. Save the planet, I guess. Get a plot.
Become a lord. Become a lord. We're bearing the lead. You get to become a lord.
You get to become a lord, and I think the coolest part is you get to hang out with me. Like if we ever decide to just take an all Steelers talk trip to Scotland, we'll meet like so many people. We'll meet 200 people, 200 fans, and we can all just hang out in Scotland. How many people get to do that? Like in our own like little yard. We'd have a little tailgate going on, turn the game on.
There's so many options. But we all need trees first. We all need to become lords first.
All need to become like a tree can't be that expensive. You get 10% off and a lot next to me. I mean, it's a great time. EstablishedTitles.com/AllSteelersTalk. Do it up. Definitely do it up. All right. Let's talk about Chase Claypool. You were there yesterday at the facility, talked to a lot of people about how the Steelers offense plans to replace Chase Claypool this week. Big slot guy. I think Pat Fryermuth's on that list. Steven Sims is on that list. Gunnar Olszewski's on that list. What was the vibe you got there about how they're approaching this week and how they plan to fill the slot position with Chase gone?
Yeah. There was a lot of confidence, I'd say. I don't think anyone feels like, that this offense is doomed without Chase Claypool in there. They all liked him. I think they knew he was a valuable part of the offense, but there's no kind of defeatism at all. I think guys are really taking this as a really big opportunity to earn themselves some reps and then to kind of rethink how the offense moves and just they can do things a little bit differently. We talked to Pat Fryermuth a little bit about using some like 2 tight end sets with him and Zach Gentry and Connor Hayward. That's an option for them. That's something that can open up the middle of the field a little bit. Something that a lot of fans I know at least have kind of clamored for. Then you've also got Steven Sims in there, just kind of an injection of speed, just a different player. I think that's the big thing is that you're just going to see some different looks. And for where the Steelers are at, doing something different is not bad. As much as Chase's trade value was valuable to the Steelers, that second round pick is definitely helpful in the long term. But that also opens up some opportunities for people to either prove themselves or not. And Steven Sims is definitely one of those guys. It's he's someone who's made some plays on special teams, but now he's getting a chance to run some more routes, he told us, but still do all kind of the gadgety stuff, use his speed not only as a route runner and with the ball in his hands, but still do some gadget stuff like the motions and the jet sweeps, and just put some pressure on the defense and stress them in a different way, and just see, what this offense has kind of lying underneath and behind Chase Claypool, or what it had behind Chase Claypool. So yeah, I think there was a little bit of excitement too, just to be able to figure out, just do something different. There was kind of a new, don't want to say new life, because people were definitely disappointed to not have Chase there, but there's a little bit of excitement just to see what they've got now and what they can do.
Yeah, I think Steven Sims is a good option. And not even like, I expect a lot of Pat Freiermuth, like you said. Zach Gentry, I think, deserves a shot to play more on the line. Connor Hayward has impressed me. But I think Steven Sims, all summer long, all we heard constantly was this is Matt Canada's offense. And what we knew from Matt Canada's offense 6 months ago was a lot of getting the ball in the playmaker's hands, a lot of using your wide receivers in the running game, a lot of the whole nine. And I think Steven Sims fits that description pretty perfectly. Like, he is that gadget, speedy, playmaking slot guy that the Steelers have raved about how they're going to utilize these guys. He's like he's a Calvin Austin. He's got the same skill set as Calvin Austin, and I think you could utilize that well, the way that it was meant to be utilized, the way that the Steelers have wanted to utilize that, but haven't, because they've been stuck on this Chase Claypool is 6'4". We got to put him in the slot notion. I think this is a breakout. I think this is a breakout half for Steven Sims. I think they utilize him a lot. I also think Pat Freiermuth's about to put up 1,000 receiving yards, and if you have him in fantasy football, start him every week, like every single week, because he'll catch 10 balls, even if he doesn't score a touchdown. Like, if you're in a PPR, that's 10 points, instantly, because he's going to catch that many balls. But I think Steven Sims is a great option for the Steelers. I also think Gunnar Olszewski could be utilized there. And if you do need a big body in the middle, put Pat Freiermuth out there, put Miles Boykin out there. You know what I mean? Use George Pickens in the slot and put Miles Boykin on the outside. Like, there's now options, and I think that you're actually less constrained to, we have 3 guys that all pretty much fit exactly where we need them to fit, and we don't really have anybody to move around because we want those 3 guys on the football field. That's just,
yeah.
And I also think Najee Harris could work in there as well.
Oh yeah, yeah, and like we said, like Jaylen Warren's a pass catching threat. Like, there's an option too. I think the biggest thing is, like, there's kind of a lot on Matt Canada now. Like, there's a lot on, we've already thrown kind of a lot on his plate, or a lot at his feet, but he's got a real chance to show his creativity and kind of that stuff you talked about. Just, he has a big chance to experiment and play around with things and try to find something valuable in this offense that's going to look a little different than it was before.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's just a good opportunity for the Steelers to test out what many believe will be what the offense looks like next year, but with Steven Sims instead of Calvin Austin, or even with Steven Sims next year, because if Steven Sims plays well, why would you get rid of him? There's no point in getting rid of him. Have a bunch of little gadget guys running around, and then George Pickens. Yeah. That's cool with me. Like, that's fun. That's how I play
everyone's
Madden.
eyes on get everyone's eyes on those motions and all that crap, and then George Pickens can just run straight by someone.
Straight by, and then just jump 13 feet in the air and come down with it somehow, because that's what he does. Yeah, I think it's a good opportunity. But like you said, it is a lot of pressure on Matt Canada. Not that there wasn't already a ton of pressure on Matt Canada, but it's a good test. At bare minimum, it's a good eye test to see if he could actually work with smaller gadget guys and getting the ball in the playmaker's hands, like he has preached for 2 years now and has failed to do miserably. So I'm all about it. The last thing I want to talk about here is Frank Reich getting fired from Indianapolis. Sparked a bunch of conversation. My conversation that I have put out there is that the Pittsburgh Steelers should most certainly consider this guy as an offensive coordinator. People have thrown a ton of shade and hate on me, a ton, about how bad the Indianapolis Colts offense was this season, and how the downfall of the last 2 years of the Colts have, left them with nothing, and it's Frank's fault. And maybe it is. I don't know. I'd want to dive into it all. But before we do that, I got to ask a question. The Colts hired Jeff Saturday, which might be the craziest, and at this point, without any games played, the worst hire in NFL history. Awful. Like, I do not think it gets any worse than this. A player with zero experience who is coming from ESPN, who has never coached a position in football, let alone the head coach of your team in week 10, and you now have nobody on the coaching staff that has ever called offensive plays before, but you're going to figure it out. I mean, I'm sure that you have a good reaction to that. I want to hear that. But on top of that, when you're done with your reaction, I also want to know, would you hire, if Mike Tomlin got fired today, would you hire Ben Roethlisberger as your head coach and say, yep, this is good. He doesn't have any experience. I'm glad that he doesn't have any experience. Bring him on here. He knows football. Is that would that be your thought?
I can answer that question right now. Absolutely not. Like, what are we talking about? Like, I don't know. Like, okay, I could absolutely see bringing in Ben as a position coach. Like, he got a young quarterback. Like, he's been in a similar spot. That makes total sense. Like, you can do that.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Handing over the entire keys to an NFL franchise to a guy who's never, like, understand quarterback's a big position, a lot of responsibility. You're involved with a lot of stuff. Like, there's a lot more that goes into being an NFL head coach than goes into being an NFL quarterback.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Like,
or an offensive center.
I think that we're also like we're not even talking about like whether or not Ben Roethlisberger would want this job. Like, this seems like the type of thing that he would just get pissed off about so easily. Like, he would have to do his first, I don't know, would it be Ben Tuesdays or whatever, and he would hate every second of it. It would be he would hate everything besides just being able to work with like Kenny and the rest of the quarterbacks and tell them what to do. So no, I don't.
Part would be bad.
Right. And it's again, like, he could be a perfectly fine, position coach or something like that, or an assistant. Like, don't hand over the whole kingdom to a guy who like has no experience and might not want it. The Jeff Saturday thing, this is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen, and I have not seen one good argument in favor of it. Like, there's he knows the Colts. Like, no, he doesn't. He played for the Colts.
He knows the Colts from 10 years ago.
Right. He was an offensive lineman. They really want to improve that offensive line. He wants them to coach him up. Hire him as your offensive line coach. Don't hire him as your head coach. How much time is he actually going to be able to spend with the literal offensive line, like working through whatever issues they have? Yeah. And then there was just Jim Irsay, like, when he was asked, he was just like, well, I just think he's the right man for the job. I'm like, well, okay. Can you tell me why he's the right man for the job? Like, I have no, like, there was no good argument I saw. I don't know if you saw a better argument for Jeff Saturday. I didn't see one convincing one.
The best part of that press conference was Jim Irsay saying, oh, well, I'm glad he doesn't have any experience. I'm like, well, that is the dumbest thing that you could say as an owner of a football team. Like, I'm glad this guy has no idea how to coach a football team. Like, it makes me very excited to know that he's coming in here. Yeah. And he was like, I don't know how to cut a buffalo or something. He's like, I don't know how to carve a buffalo, but I know how to win a football. I know how to build a football organization. And I'm like, bro, you traded for Carson Wentz next year, and you just hired last year, and you just hired Jeff Saturday as your head coach. You clearly are losing it on how to build an NFL team. You're not there anymore, buddy.
Right.
The resume
is
bad.
They haven't. I'm like, do you really know how to do that? You haven't won anything since Peyton Manning left. Like, I'm not really sure. Right. Nope. I'm not really sure how much of this was you, man.
Nope. Which is a perfect argument, because everybody's giving me slack. Everybody is giving. If you have not checked out the YouTube page or the YouTube comments on my to go this morning, it is just everybody calling me an idiot for wanting to hire Frank Reich as the offensive coordinator of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And their argument is, well, the Indianapolis Colts suck this year. That offense is the worst offense in football. All right. Yeah, no doubt. Definitely is. The offensive line is terrible. Jonathan Taylor's been hurt all season long. He suffered the number one pick in fantasy football injury bug, which happens to everybody. Matt Ryan is washed, and you have one wide receiver in Michael Pittman Jr., who's probably a wide receiver 2 or 3. He's like a Chase Claypool in Pittsburgh. That's what he's going to do in Pittsburgh, is be a Chase Claypool. On top of that, your defense is iffy. Leonard, I guess his name's Shaquille Leonard now. Not on the field half the season. It's just there's just nothing good about the Indianapolis Colts this year. And I guess that's Frank Reich's. Here's my question to you. If Mike Tomlin got fired today, you're telling me that anybody who's looking for a defensive coordinator should not hire Mike Tomlin because the Pittsburgh Steelers are garbage and their defense stinks this year? Is that the argument?
Yeah, that's I think I like it's apples and oranges a little bit, but I think it's I agree with you. It's kind of the same concept. We're going to throw all of these struggles that this Colts team has had, this Colts offense has had at the feet of their head coach. He didn't hurt Jonathan Taylor. He didn't make the entire line just regress immediately. He didn't, there was
refused to draft a quarterback for 4 years.
Right, and trade for Carson Wentz. And yeah, I don't we talked about it a little bit before we jumped on, but the 3 different quarterbacks in 3 years, that's all his fault too.
4. Think about the Indianapolis Colts during the reign of Frank Reich. So he showed up in 2017, or 2018, just won a Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles. Which if you're gonna make a real argument, he took Nick Foles to the freaking Super Bowl, and won it. Against Tom Brady. He beat Tom Brady with Nick Foles. That's a good offensive coordinator in my eyes. No, he did. I don't care.
I don't remember much about that game. So
yeah, well, everybody else does, especially those in Philly.
Yeah,
he beat Tom Brady with Nick Foles at quarterback, which should never happen ever. So, and that's in 2017. That's really not that long ago. Since then, he shows up in Indianapolis. His quarterback is Jacoby Brissett. And they were like, yeah, this guy's going to be fine. He'll make it work. No, he clearly did not make it work. He was terrible. Then they went to Phillip Rivers. That worked for a year, but that should have been the bridge year. That was we should get a quarterback so that they could learn behind Phillip Rivers. Instead, they said, nah, never mind. We're going to do it again because that worked well with Phillip Rivers. And they said, Carson Wentz is the guy. He's got more years than Phillip. Let's bring him in there. Carson Wentz is the worst thing to happen to any franchise in the last 10 years. He's just the guy that somehow makes it through to every organization on big contracts with dumb trades, and then he stinks. He is the Matt Canada of NFL organizations in the last 5 years. So that didn't work. And then they said, all right, well, you know what? Instead of drafting another quarterback, you want to know what we're gonna go get Matt Ryan, which in their defense looked like a great idea. But it didn't work out. And at some point, the whole one quarterback every single year is going to bite you in the butt.
Right.
That's what happened. He came in here and he had no stability. And somehow his offense stunk. Wonder why. I wonder why. Makes no sense.
Using a bridge quarterback for 3 straight years. Shocking that it doesn't work. I can't.
Shocking that doesn't work. And people want to make the
argument. The Steelers had their own. The Steelers just did this experiment. This is. Yeah.
Exactly. And it didn't work. And if Mike Tomlin got fired today, there would be 31 teams in the NFL that gave him a phone call for some job or another. I'm not saying that he'd be a head coach everywhere, but at least half of them would offer him their defensive coordinator position. And the other half, if they weren't looking for a head coach, they would easily offer him a position coach and he'd have a job in 3 days. No doubt about it. Frank Reich's not going to leave the NFL. It's not the end of Frank Reich's run in the NFL. He's worked with every position imaginable. He's been an offensive coordinator for 5+ years. He's deserved an offensive coordinator job. I just think he's a great fit. And he's a veteran. He's a guy that could come in here. He's proven that he could develop quarterbacks. He made Carson Wentz look really good in Philadelphia, like a superstar. He was the beginning of what Carson Wentz is now. The Carson Wentz train that has still somehow gained momentum and likely will next year, because if anybody thinks Carson Wentz's career is over, they're crazy. Somebody's going to make some dumb decision to trade for him. He started that. He is the cause of the downfall of his own disaster. He's the cause of his own downfall. That's what he was, because he started the Carson Wentz greatness train.
Yeah, I was going to say his that work he did with Carson in Philly is doing a lot of heavy lifting for Carson's career.
Oh, it's doing all the heavy. People are still banking on the Carson Wentz that played 8 games, and people credit him for taking the Eagles to the Super Bowl. Well, he was really good that year. He would have won MVP. He played 8 games. Okay. He wouldn't have won MVP. He played 8 games. Okay. Stop. But that was Frank Reich. So I'll take that any day, any single day, because it's better than what they have now. It's in my opinion, it's a proven guy, and I'm not really in the position, and I don't think the Steelers are in a position to say we're going to take a chance on somebody without a track record to try to develop Kenny Pickett. And I just think he hits that box that says, look, I know how to develop quarterbacks. That's what you need right now. You don't need anything else. You don't need a Sean McVay. Sean McVay would be amazing if you knew that you were going to get a Sean McVay. But if you're going to take an opportunity, if you're going to take a chance and a risk on that, you might as well just get somebody who's proven and say, hey, here's 2 years. Please develop our quarterback well. And, then hopefully you go get another job somewhere. And then we find our Sean McVay, Plus, I know Mike Tomlin. And Mike Tomlin would not work well with a Sean McVay. Sean McVay, a guy like that comes in here and goes, oh, no, we're going to change all this up and we're going to create this new offense. Tomlin would lose his mind. Art Rooney would have a heart attack. It would be a terrible, terrible situation in Pittsburgh. So I just think Frank Reich's the move. I'm going to stick with that thought. I don't know if you have a closing argument, but
no,
I feel real good.
I don't hate it. And yeah, I mean, if there was someone more obvious out there, the Steelers probably would have hired them. And Sean McVay, not Sean McVay. Frank Reich doesn't have to be perfect. Like, he just has to. But you've got, like you said, someone proven who's worked with a first round quarterback, who's gotten them to a great spot, and then taken a lesser talent at quarterback and made something really great out of them. I totally, that argument makes perfect sense to me.
That's what I'm saying. He is the perfect fit. And the fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to wait it out until the offseason to take a chance on getting him or anybody else, absurd. Absolutely absurd at this point in the year. Like, who cares? Clean house. Get your guy. See if it works. If Kenny takes a step forward, you got to feel real good about that. And, you don't care about the fans' reactions to this point, so don't care about them with the new guy either. That's just how I look at it. But they won't. No changes will happen. They're going to head into the offseason, and we'll see what happens with Matt Canada's contract. But everybody telling me that that's a bad idea, you're wrong, because it's a great idea. And I feel even better about it now than I did coming into this. So all you YouTube comments, get out of here. All right, we're heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk or anywhere you get your podcasts. Go use our promo code at establishedtitles.com/All Steelers Talk so we could grow one giant All Steelers Talk army or gang or whatever you want to call it in Scotland with a bunch of trees. We could play hide and seek or something. I don't know. I Spy with some trees. Be a really boring game, but we'd figure it out. I will be back on Friday with Derek. Steven has a midweek report coming out on Thursday on top of our first episode of Steelers Draft Talk with Derek Bell and Nick Martin. A lot of exciting stuff coming out with our podcast this week, so check out the YouTube page and all the audio pages. Enjoy the rest of your day.